So share with us your first investment in the multifamily as a passive investor. I mean, what was the hesitation, fear, and what did that transition look like from single family to multifamily?
Yeah, interesting. It was not a direct line. Like I owned, I think, six single family homes. Um, and I started looking at 10 and 20 unit apartment complexes in Atlanta to buy myself, and found out very, very quickly that I was probably getting in over my head and was starting to venture into an arena where, if you make a mistake on $100,000 home, you can sell that home and maybe you lose 25 or 30 grand. But when you start looking at, one and a half, 2 million, $2.5 million multifamily opportunities, those types of errors and challenges that you run into can have a pretty significant impact on you as a net worth. So at that point, I decided that I would make that first passive investment really with just the goal of trying to figure out how these syndications work and see if syndication was something that I wanted to do myself.
This is the Real Estate Vibe Show, and I'm your host, Vinki Loomba. As a real estate investor and a fund manager, I'm always excited to explore the world of real estate opportunities with you and for you. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Randy Smith. Randy is a founder of Impact Equity, has guided over 100 investors to place more than 8 million in passive real estate investments since June 2022. With a background in single family rentals and multifamily syndications, Randy leverages his extensive experience to identify and secure strong passive opportunities for his clients. Welcome, Randy, to the Real Estate Vibe Show.
Yeah, thanks so much, Vicky, for having me on the show. I'm excited to dig in and talk about my favorite topic of capital raising and multifamily syndications.
Exactly. So today we're going to have a very interesting topic. We're going to be talking about capital raising secrets, or I should say, we're going to be revealing the capital raising secrets. Capital raising is an essential skill in real estate investing. We all know that. And mastering this art is a key to attracting investors, securing funding, and scaling your real estate ventures. We all have different personalities and connect with others at various levels. But as long as we are adding value to the lives around us, that's what truly matters. And today, let's explore how Randy started his journey in a corporate America. And from there, now he's in real estate and he's just like thriving there. So, Randy, can you start with your background? How did you become who you are today?
Yeah, goodness, that's a pretty deep question. How did I become who I am? I can tell you about the journey, but I don't know if I can get into that much detail. But yeah, so as I shared with you before, I was a corporate America sales guy for about 25 years. I spent the very large majority of that 25 years with two large organizations, Fortune 100, Fortune 200 organizations, and was really blessed to be in environments where I was coached and I was trained and got to be exposed to all different types of businesses and types of personalities, which really kind of equipped me for what I'm doing today. So about 5 or 6 years before I ended up leaving corporate America, like a lot of folks, I had reached a level in my career where I was making very good money. I had quite a bit of success and had received leadership and recognition, and started to get a little bored in that world and did the math to try to figure out, like, are these dollars going to give me the amount of income I want when I leave corporate America? And very quick back of the napkin math told me that I was going to need to do more. What I found is making very good money in corporate America quite often is not enough to create the type of future that I wanted to create for my family and myself. So I jumped into real estate. My dad had been very successful in real estate, both in multifamily and other means as well. So I jumped into that space and spent a lot of time driving around between appointments in my sales career, listening to podcasts and books, and heard about this idea of the turnkey rentals, and I heard about BRRRR investing, and I jumped, like so many do, right into single family because it seemed easy. It seemed, it seemed like something that I already knew because I had bought multiple homes for myself. So went down that path and found out very quickly that I did not want to scale a single family business. The simple math that I did, I was going to need either 50 homes that were paid off or 100 homes that were financed to create the type of income that I wanted. So, like many, I started looking at multifamily. And since then, I've gone all in on passive investing in multifamily, and now I'm teaching others how to do the same.
So share with us your first investment in the multifamily as a passive investor. I mean, what was the hesitation, fear, and what did that transition look like from single family to multifamily?
Yeah, interesting. It was not a direct line. Like I owned, I think, six single family homes. Um, and I started looking at 10 and 20 unit apartment complexes in Atlanta to buy myself, and found out very, very quickly that I was probably getting in over my head and was starting to venture into an arena where, if you make a mistake on $100,000 home, you can sell that home and maybe you lose 25 or 30 grand. But when you start looking at, 1.5, 2 million, $2.5 million multifamily opportunities, those types of errors and challenges that you run into can have a pretty significant impact on you as a net worth. So at that point, I decided that I would make that first passive investment really with just the goal of trying to figure out how these syndications work and see if syndication was something that I wanted to do myself. And I just fell in love with the passive investing space. It was this process where I'd vet an operator, I'd vet a deal, I'd send in my money, and then within months, sometimes I'd be getting distributions right away. So I'm kind of a jump in fast guy, and I shifted a lot of capital over to deals very, very quickly. And fast forward a couple of years, when I did finally get laid off, the very large majority of my personal monthly expenses were covered by passive income.
Interesting. So you said you jumped into the multifamily. It was gradually, not jumped into actually. So when you decided to invest passively, and you said you were the sponsor and you were the deal, what exactly steps did you take there? And how did you decide that, okay, this is the right operator for me, this is the right team that I want to work with? Because
Sure.
multifamily is a team sport versus single family. And you said it very well that, it was a smaller dollar amount with a single family home. So not necessarily there was a chance to lose a lot more. And here you're stepping into bigger arena and there was a risk of losing more and you decided to go as a team. But when you're deciding that's like one versus many. So there's, a mindset shift right there, first of all. And the second thing is you have to find the right partner, right team, even
Yeah.
as a limited partner, who you wanted to invest with, because this is like you're marrying somebody for 5 years or 10 years, depending upon the deal size or the deal length. So you have to know, like, and trust that person. So if you can share that journey with us, how did
Sure.
you decide what was the due diligence steps?
Yeah, well, I wish I could tell you that I vetted my operators the way I do today, but I definitely did
Didn't
not.
know much. Uh-huh.
There's been a lot of education. As Rod Cleef says, I've been through many seminars
Mhm.
where I've paid the price of making bad decisions. Um, but I will tell you, the very first one was just simply it was a podcast host that I had been listening to for years, and he was putting together a syndication in the mobile home park or mobile home community sector. And I thought after listening to him for a few years that I knew, like, and trusted him. And I thought he had too big of a brand to fail. And I jumped in and made that first investment. I think at first, when you first get started as a passive investor, you don't even know what questions to ask. And I thought I had done very good due diligence, but I know today that I missed so much. Um, fortunately, I think those early investments are going to turn out just fine. Probably not in the time frame that I had hoped they would, or maybe not at the exact pro forma returns. But yeah, I have a tendency to jump in and, as they say, jump out of the plane and build the parachute on the way down. And fortunately, I haven't had big losses from that, but there have been plenty of learning lessons, definitely.
So then you got into this capital raising, right? Because you did your own investments as a passive investor, and then you
Yep.
thought, I learned in all it's time to introduce the other people in my friends and family circle and bring them along in this journey. So, what initially drew your attention to this, or made you kind of specialize in this area?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see here. So being a salesperson by trade, I have a tendency to share whatever it is that I'm doing with a larger audience. And I'm not shy to share, how I stub my toes and the lessons that I'm learning and the tremendous upside that I was seeing with some of those early passive investments. So naturally, about a year and a half into my own passive investing experience, my friends and family and colleagues and coworkers started asking me about what it was that I was doing and wanted to get more information. And being a guy in sales, I wanted to see if there was some way for me to monetize that process of connecting investors with the people that I was personally investing with. And when I had some early conversations with an operator, I learned very quickly around the legalities behind that, and decided at the time that it probably didn't make sense for me to jump into what I'm doing today, because my time was better spent doing what I was doing in my W-2, because I did very well. So when I did get laid off, though, in June of 22, I very quickly connected with a very large amount of people in my network just to get a feel for what was going on in the marketplace, hear what really were the needs in the space. And the resounding answer I heard time and time and time again was operators were looking for people to invest in their deals. And if there was an opportunity to leverage the network that I had to create a name, create a brand, create a business, then that seemed like the obvious solution. So ultimately, I ended up partnering with an operator that I had invested in, I think at the time, 7 or 8 deals, maybe 9 deals. And they walked me through the entire process, connected me with their SEC attorneys, and I was able to launch my first fund and bring it was 25 or 30 investors from my direct network into that first deal for $830,000 on that first raise.
Nice. So any challenges through that time period?
Um, Gosh, yes, there definitely were. I think back at that first deal, and it was much easier, I would say, than the last handful of deals that I've done, right? So there is certainly investor fatigue, and there is deal fatigue that your network will get from hearing from you, especially, like yourself. I've done a very large number of deals. I've done 16 deals in 2 years. So that initial core group of people that invested with me have heard and seen many, many deals from me over the last couple of years. And there's been a lot of learnings along the way, most certainly. But as a whole, it's been a fairly smooth onboarding of a new business. And I'm just very excited that I've been able to help as many people as I have up to this point.
That's true. I get that from my investors too. I'm in the similar boat. And then it's like your deals move very fast because we got the deal flow and then deal comes and close like, okay, you guys move really, really fast. But I think as you're doing these deals, every project is a new project. So every time you learn something new, right?
Yeah,
So for me, I just feel like, I'm kind of redefining myself every moment. With every
sure.
new deal, I'm redefining my strategies, the way I'm doing things, my techniques. So, what are some of the most effective strategies or techniques that you have carved out for yourself, for your investors?
Yeah, so from a new investor acquisition standpoint, are you saying?
Yeah, or even
Or
keeping
anything?
the previous one engaged all the time. Because one time you have somebody invest with you, they will invest with you over again, as
Yeah,
long as they are getting the experience, whatever they're looking for. Because
right.
what I have learned from my investor is because they are in this deal with you because they wanted to experience the whole thing from conception to completion. So they
Yeah,
wanted to know all the good, bad, and ugly. They don't
yeah,
want it to get their hands dirty, but they want it to stay maybe 10 feet away, but they wanted to
sure.
experience everything. It's kind of an experiential project for them. So they
Yep,
will come back to you if they are getting the same experience, whatever they're looking for. So I
yep,
wanted to hear your experience. What strategy is working for you, or what have you carved out, for yourself?
yeah.
That's
Yeah, so I mean, initially, like the way I started initially looks very different than what I'm doing today. But initially, what I did is I reached out to my existing network who were existing colleagues. There were certainly some family members and even clients of mine from previous roles that I was in.
Mhm.
And I used some automation tools through LinkedIn to do that initially. And really, the goal that I had initially was if I could talk to people in my network and share my experience with them and the benefits that I'm personally getting from this passive investing, then I felt very confident that they would also get excited about that and then consider partnering with me. So, that's essentially what I did. I used some LinkedIn automation tools. I was able to fill my calendar up for, a couple of weeks, literally on the half hour for, from 8 to 5. And got in front of a lot of the people in my network and shared my story, and many of them decided to invest with me. Now, from there, I've continued that process where I still spend a lot of time and energy on LinkedIn because I think that's where my avatar hangs out is on LinkedIn. The avatar specifically is sales and sales leadership professionals that are usually in the middle of their career,
Mhm.
might be getting a little stale in their career, and they're looking, essentially, it's just a previous version of me. They're at that point where they're looking at their numbers and saying, I need more in my retirement account if I ever wish to leave this W-2. So LinkedIn is a great place for me to get in front of those people. And I use automation tools. I do webinars. I try to get on other people's stages. I've launched a podcast that we have 230 episodes at this point. I think I've been on like 60 different podcasts of other people like these as well. And my goal is just to share my story with as many people as possible because I think it resonates, and it's worked very well up to this point.
Ah, that's good to know that. You said you use the automation tools, and you mentioned you use some tools with LinkedIn too. Can you share with us what kind of tools are you using?
Yeah, so I've used I use a tool today called Dripify, and I've used another tool called Expandio, and I actually have much better results with Dripify than I did with Expandio. Um, I use that for a couple of different things. One, I use it to automate the connection request process. So I mentioned my avatar to you before, sales and sales leadership professionals. So I pull lists of those people that match that criteria, and I just do connection request campaigns to them to build that audience on LinkedIn. So we automate the connection request process, and then once we have the connection, we automate that initial conversation to ultimately try to either one, get them on my email list so they can see my future content there, or two, encourage them to book a call with me. So once again, I can share my story and hopefully inspire them to participate. So once we do that, that is really my primary lead funnel is LinkedIn at this point, and it couples very well with the podcast. And I found that podcasting is not so much a top of funnel strategy for me. It's more a middle funnel. So as people are already in my audience, then they will go into my podcast, listen to the podcast, and build credibility and trust through that model. And that's initially how I ultimately end up connecting with them.
Interesting. So now AI is available big time. Everybody's using AI tools.
Yeah.
Everything is more, I would say, automation over here. And the way I look at it is we are stepping into an infinite world because a lot of tools is gonna be managed by AI, which
Yep.
people are already doing that. So wanting to understand from you, did you incorporate AI into your day-to-day life in investor attraction
Yeah.
or maintaining the current database, or how exactly you're doing it?
Yeah. Yeah. So I am a huge fan of AI, ChatGPT specifically, the paid version of it. Um, and I'm really just starting to scratch, I think, the tip of the possibilities that are present there. I don't know if I shared this earlier, but I also do some capital raising coaching. And part of that coaching process that I go through is I create a GPT for each of my clients. And I use this process where I interview my clients, very similar to this, hear their story and help them continue to refine and define their story. And then I take that story, input it into the GPT, and then I help them create their avatar through that as well. And you can actually, when you're building a GPT for somebody else, and what I've done for my own impact equity GPT is I include every presentation that I've ever done in the GPT. I have probably 50 different YouTube posts or YouTube videos that I include in my GPT. And essentially, I'm creating this clone for myself to create content, and I'm creating this clone of my clients that they can then use to help build their business as well. So that's just one way that I'm using it today. I just finished my newsletter, and I essentially copy and paste what I come up with my newsletter and ask it to refine it and improve the professionalism and the grammar and the tone. And it's just, at the end of the day, it creates a better product than what I can do, certainly in a short amount of time. And 9 times out of 10, it's got more accurate details and data and metrics than what I can come up with hours and hours of research. So yeah, I'm leveraging it quite a bit. I think it's extremely powerful. But I'm eager to learn what other people are doing as well, because I think I'm really just getting started.
I didn't know that you have a capital raising mastermind or a coaching program there. And let me ask you this question before we talk about that. So this chat GPT the GPT that you're creating for your students or the clients,
Sure.
it's like a chatbot you're creating for them. It's like the personal chatbot. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So essentially, what you do is you're creating a bot that has background and information about that individual person. So when you ask the bot a question, it will answer based on the knowledge base that you've created for it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you compile a list of, your podcast as an example, you've interviewed or you've been on 50 other people's interviews, you can take that content and have the bot review that and pull information from those interviews on your expertise and your skills. And then when you ask the bot the question, it will go back to that knowledge base and respond in kind. And it's really powerful. Like I mentioned, I've done, the secrets of passive investing, how to get started in passive investing, different strategies for passive investing, all in PowerPoint presentations that I've done. You can upload those PowerPoints or those Excel or Word documents or webinars, and it will reference all of those materials to answer the questions that you're asking. And more often than not, they're going to answer it much better than you could if you sat down for an hour trying to craft it personally as well. So it's really, really powerful. And it's a way essentially where you can clone yourself with a
That's
better memory.
mhm.
I'm in my early 50s and my memory's fading, so it remembers better than I do.
That's
So
true. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're so right about that. It's just like one mind versus millions of minds. So
exactly.
it's just creating something. And this is like so instant, just like that. I have
Yeah.
created some chat GPTs, not chat GPT, GPTs, of my personal GPTs as well. So I have for the social media, I have my podcast because it just pulls my podcast guys through the APIs. I connect with the Buzzsprout and everything. So it
Yep.
pulls all the information and it can create a social media post for me. So it's like immense opportunity right there. So
Yeah,
let's come back to your coaching program. So tell us some of the secrets that you're teaching over
sure.
there in your coaching or mastermind.
Yeah, so it's my coach, it's not a mastermind at this point. And there's been a large ask from my clients, and everybody and their brother seems to have a mastermind today. And I personally did not choose to have a mastermind component to it, at least initially, because I wanted to make sure that the content that I was creating and delivering was providing the value. The mastermind could come as an afterthought, but it's really going to be the core of this coaching is to provide my clients with everything they need to raise their first $500,000 or their next $500,000, and to give them a duplicatable process and processes and systems that they can do this over and over and over again, just like I have. So I call it the RAISE, RAISE capital program. The R is relaying your story to your avatar. So I help them refine their story and identify their ideal avatar, which is just a previous version of them. The A stands for attracting through LinkedIn. So I teach them LinkedIn automation, basic best practices around LinkedIn. Because I find like I've used LinkedIn for almost 20 years. And it's been the single most powerful tool that I use, not only in my career, but in this business as well. So I want to teach folks how to do that. The A is for identifying operators and partners and due diligence. So I teach them how to identify the people they're going to partner with. The S is how to structure their fund or leverage co-GP or GP or fund of funds or all the customizable funds or blind funds. We walk through all of those so at least they know it's essentially all of the things that I've learned over the last 2 years that I wish I would have known when I first got started. And then finally, the E is for engaging through CRM, email marketing, and using investor portals. So through those 5 steps in one-on-one coaching over the course of 6 sessions, I deliver to them everything they need to get started as a capital raiser. And it's about 1/10 of the price of most of the masterminds that people see out there.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. And thanks for sharing that. I really like that. So, I mean, what is the future now? Are you gonna keep on growing this and turn into mastermind? What is the goal for your this coaching program?
Yeah, so the goal here right now is really, I have, I think my first 9 clients, so it's not a large volume yet. I really wanted to use the first clients to refine the content and the materials. Now I'll likely record them somehow and then put them out into a platform and potentially add a mastermind or at a minimum a Slack community for people to interact and engage with one another as well. So I heard somebody say at one point, and I'm sure you get a lot of this as well, like once you start to have some success in some area, everybody and their brother, either one, wants you to raise capital for them, or two, they want to know what you did to learn how to raise capital. So I heard somebody say something that I thought was really, really funny. And they said, you can feel free to pick my brain when you pick your payment method. And it sounds a little abrasive to say that, but what I found is I was spending so much time on people were getting on my calendar to pick my brain and learn about what I'm doing, that I just thought there's got to be a way to monetize this a little bit. And quite frankly, if I could create the content once and then share it with people, then I think that's going to bring a lot of value. And then secondly, what I found is that after I've had a number of my clients go through this, what they find out is that this is really, really hard. It's not as easy as everybody thinks that it is. So I've been doing a lot of consulting with existing groups that just need to professionalize their capital raising efforts, and they don't have the time, energy, or expertise to do it. So I can help them do that as well.
Hmm, interesting. So with this AI coming into play, how do you see what is going to happen to capital raising? Basically, that's what I wanted to know because the
Yeah.
way things are working until now, that's going to shift drastically. It's not going to the same way we're going to be doing things. So how do you envision what the future is going to look like for capital raising?
Yeah. So I think it, deals get done with people.
Mm.
Deals don't get done on social media posts. Deals don't get done on newsletters. I think the top of funnel or the middle of funnel process will likely continue to get refined. And it's like any other technology that's ever come into place, whether it's electricity or planes or cars or whatever. People are always very, very scared about how it's going to impact the frontline employee. And I think the way I'm choosing to look at AI is this is just another great tool that's going to help me continue to refine and systematize and improve and increase efficiency. But at the end of the day, deals get done between two people. Like this conversation that you and I are having does not occur with AI. This is you and I speaking. And the one-on-one conversations, whether with coaching clients or with investors, that will always have to occur because people know, like, and trust people when they speak with them, not when they just read or review their content. So that's my
That's true.
opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is with the initial connection, like we used to have, like meeting people at the networking sessions or going to the conferences and all that, collecting all those business cards and trying to reach out to them personally. I think that's gonna go away. It's more like
Okay.
it's gonna be bars. You can have your avatar reach out to people. So the initial reach is gonna be different. So that's gonna
Yep.
create some impact on the overall process. And things gonna work a little bit different, maybe not a whole lot initially, but at some point, I think there is gonna be a new way of doing things. It's not gonna be necessarily change the whole thing, but I just feel like there has to be something different
Yep.
and maybe more effective way of doing it, or
Mhm.
maybe not that effective. We just have to wait and watch, basically. So, what
Yeah.
advice do you have for the beginners who's looking to make a space in this area?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, just get started. So many people, myself included, I sat on the sidelines for far too long, not only from an investing standpoint, but from a capital raising standpoint. One, I wish I would have started investing in real estate 10 years prior to when I did. Secondly, on my capital raising business, I wish I would have started while I was in my W-2. Um, that first year of raising capital is challenging. And if you can do that while you still have income, that is that can be hugely beneficial. Um, and then when you do finally get to a point where your income, I would say your income from this doesn't even have to match your income from your W-2, but once it covers your household expenses, that's when you make the leap into doing this full time. So yeah, first and foremost, just get started and start today versus waiting till everything's aligned and perfect, because it never will be aligned and perfect. After you get started in the space, this all comes down to relationships. So start um, start building those relationships as soon as possible and start investing as well. I think the best credibility piece for a capital raiser is somebody who has actually invested heavily themselves. And if you haven't invested yourself, I would actually suggest that you not get into the space and find a place where you can make some money so you can invest. So those are just some of the lessons I would share.
Yeah, I like those. Thank you so much for sharing that. This brings us to a rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You're going to answer it in one word or one sentence only. Are you ready?
Right.
So the first question is, what is one of the most important thing that you've learned in your life, and how did your life change after learning it?
Goodness, most important thing that I've learned in my life. So integrity to me means more than anything in the world. So just simply doing what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, how you say you will do it, I think is one of the most important things in the world. So how is that impacted? Um, I will tell you, when you act with integrity, uh, you don't have to be looking over your shoulder. You don't have to be worried about decisions you've made in the past. It just makes life a lot easier if you're acting with integrity. So
Yeah, you sleep peacefully at night. So share one good book that you like and like to recommend to my audience.
uh, I just suggested this to a friend this morning, The Gap in the Game, Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. I love their whole series. Anything Benjamin Hardy, anything Ryan Holiday are my two favorite authors.
In one word, what does life mean to you?
contribution.
Great one. What is your biggest passion?
So so the short answer is I like to be an expert at things and teach people how to do that. So when I can help others, tying back to the contribution piece, that's where I hit the flow state more than anything.
I like that. If you could turn back in time and talk to your younger self, what would you tell yourself and why?
Don't be so concerned about what everybody else is doing. Be true to yourself. Yeah.
I like that. How can people reach out to you, Randy?
Yeah, my website is impactequity.net. My podcast is The Gentle Art of Crushing It. And I am all over LinkedIn, as you know, under Randy Smith.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thanks so much, Vinki.